What I want to discuss right now is creating a vision or creating a brand. This always seems to be something that we all have a lot of problems with. And I know I've spent nights just sitting kind of thinking about it myself, and also working with many other people. One of the most important things that we have to do as creative people is to be able to really define our vision so we can explain that to other people. There's this very simple system that I've devised that I think that'll help everybody, because it puts in front of you in a very systematic way a way to start to develop your brand. We call this our vision pyramid. And basically what it is, it's a way that we can start applying the knowledge that we have and the information that we have about ourselves in a very systematic system that will eventually help us define a presentation piece, a communication piece, a message that we can deliver to others about our brand. What the core value is the type of things that are needed for everybody in your profession. Core values for a photographer, some of the things that a photographer needs to know is they need to have an understanding of cameras and lenses, have a degree of proficiency with equipment. They need to have a basic understanding of design. They should also have an ability to take the right exposure. Now, there certainly are some more, and you do this exercise for yourself and have a look at it. Core values, what we want to do is that's the price of entry. Whether you are an art director or an illustrator or a photographer or a copywriter, when we're trying to consider what core values are, those are the types of things that one has to be able to do to get into that profession. If you're an art director, you certainly want to be able to work with concepts. If you're an illustrator, you want to be able to represent images through illustration, whatever those things are. So in core values, the price of entry, what are the types of things that are needed to do what you want to do? Because this can oftentimes stifle some people. Once they get to this place, they say, well, you know, I don't have those assets. If I want to get into the field, I need to get those assets. What we're going to do now is we're going to start to move up the pyramid. We're not going to go to distinguishing values yet. We're going to look at personality, and we're going to look at tone and expression. Tone and expression, the best way of looking at that is if you were wearing a suit. What kind of suit is that? Is it a business-like suit? Is it a casual suit? What type of suit is it? Personality is your personality. Are you introverted or you're extroverted? And these are all things that you want to consider when you're developing your vision and your brand. And why do you want to consider these things? Well, for example, if you are a photographer who wants to shoot celebrities and you're really introverted, that may not be the kind of thing that you're interested in doing. Or you may want to change that aspect of your personality if it's easy. Usually it's easier to try to define your profession rather than change your personality. For example, if you're a really introverted person and you're a photographer, you maybe want to work inside a studio. You maybe want to be a still life photographer where you're not interacting with people that many people on a regular basis. Certainly you'll be reacting with stylists and all of that, but not, for example, with a celebrity where there's a lot of personal interaction and a lot of pressure and stress that would be put on you. So we're going to look at personality and expression. Tone and expression is how do I present myself? So let's say that we are professional, confident, fashionable, and trendy. This starts to give us an idea of kind of defining who we are, how do we present, how other people see us. Personality. Personality is what am I like? And when we're doing these exercises, really think carefully about each one of these things, because they are really going to be the things that separate you. And you can also ask the people who know you well. Again, what we want to do as we go through this is we really want to define those elements that define us. And as we do those things and start to define those, we start to create our vision. We start to identify those things that separate us from everybody else. And these are really important for creating that vision in our brand. So let's look at personality. What are some of the attributes of this person that we are starting to describe? Let's say some of the attributes for this person is they're an extrovert. Friendly, thoughtful, maybe flexible. So when we start to look at all of this, personality and tone and expression, we're starting to get an idea of who this person is. We're starting to define who this person is. Now let's take a step back and go right back down to distinguishing values. These are going to be really important for us to start to distinguish the types of values that we have as this photographer that differentiate ourselves from just all the basic photographers. We already see that through tone and personality, we are starting to differentiate ourselves. Not all people are extroverts or friendly and thoughtful and flexible in their personality. Not all are fashionable and trendy and confident and work very professional. Now what we want to look at are the values, our professional values in our career that separate us from everybody else. Maybe one of the distinguishing values is that we work quickly, good with concepts. We're able to get reactions from talent. And what you want to do as you go through this, you probably want to look at maybe 4 or 5, or if you can get 6 or 7, that's fine too. And then what you start to do is you start to filter these things out. Likes working with people. So we're starting to really define and separate ourselves from everybody else. We're not a photographer that likes to go out and shoot landscapes, for example. We don't enjoy that very much. We're not a photographer who likes to do still life or tabletop. That's not what we really enjoy doing. We're a person who likes to work with people, get performances out of people. We work well with people. When we look at our personality supports that. We're an extrovert, we're friendly, we're thoughtful, and we're confident. So we're all starting to define this. Now what we want to do is we want to look at a promise. And what the promise is, it's almost like a slogan or a television commercial. It's the kind of thing that takes all of this and filters it down into a sentence that describes who we are and what we do and what we deliver to a client. This is the one that always stumps everybody because we get up to the promise and we've got all of this other stuff below us. We already see from looking at everything else that we like working with people, we like to be a little bit on the edge, and we're flexible, we come up with good ideas. So let's say that this would be our promise. Create emotionally honest portraits because of my ability to get great performances. So what we've seen here through this vision is we've seen that we are able to distill all of the personality, our tone and expression, our distinguishing values to come up with a promise that we can deliver to a client. So look at what we've got. What we have here is we have a profile of you or this particular photographer. And what it does is it ends up in giving the photographer a 5 to 10 second television commercial or radio commercial about themselves. And there's a study at one of the universities that basically stated when you first meet someone, you have 15 to 30 seconds to explain who you are and convince this person that you are what you explain. And what we have here is we have a photographer who says, I create emotionally honest portraits because of my ability to get performances. Now, that strikes a responsive chord with someone who is looking for a photographer to take portraits, rather than a photographer who just comes and says, hi, I'm a photographer and I will do any pictures you want. Wouldn't you rather work with someone who's really feel that their whole vision, that their self is in this, their focus is in this particular direction? This is what we are doing. We are creating a key set of words for you to communicate your vision. So whether you're an art director or a writer or anything at all, what we want to do is we want to define those visions. Now, one of the really unique things about this too is if you're working for a client, you do this for yourself for the client, because you try to figure out, the client says, I have some photographs I want you to take of people in my company, or they say, I have an ad I want you to do as an art director, or an illustrator, or whatever. You go back to this and you start to look and you start to fill this in for that company. And you start to get a sense of what this company is about. And yeah, and certainly you talk to the company, you ask them to fill in all of this, because what you want to do is you want to have an understanding of what that company's vision is, so that you know how to align your vision with that company's vision. They know what their expectations are. They know why they hired you. and they know what your expectations are or what their expectations are of you. And then by understanding what their expectations are for a company, you can bring yours and align them together. So it's a nice little feature that doesn't take you very long to kind of define, but it is able to help you define things in words, so when you are talking to the company or you're talking to a new client or a potential client, you're able to talk to them with words that you can relate to. I'm going to take this one step further, because once you have this as creative people and people working in the visual medium, once we have this, we want to take this and we want to apply this to our own identity. We have our portfolios that we're building up, and we want to be able to apply this to that identity. I'm going to show you a little exercise that I use often. And you know what I find, that when people start to understand their vision and they try to apply that to things like logos, typography, colors, that seems to always create a problem. How do I choose a color? What typography do I use? What should my copy sound like? And this is a very quick little exercise, but it helps to put things in perspective, and it gives you a point of view in terms of moving through this. I call it my hard, soft, warm, cool exercise, and used it many times and shown it to a lot of people, and it's amazing how people find it useful not only for interpreting their own information, but also when they're applying it to other jobs. What this is about is when you're starting to create your vision, as we saw from the last vision statement, you're using words, and some of the words are hard words, some of the words are soft words. You all have a personality, and you want that personality to come through. So how do you make some of these decisions when you're talking, for example, about color and typography, and also even if you're talking about copywriting, if someone's writing some copy for your website? If you are an illustrator and you do romantic illustrations, we start to end up more on this side of the chart. This is more of a pastel area over here. On this side of the chart, when we're getting towards cool, if we're staying up and you know, this would be a pastel, say warm red. When we're looking at the soft cool area, this would be say a pastel blue. This would be, let's say if we're talking with someone whose design is a little bit cooler, or their illustrations are a little bit cooler, they start to fall into this. If we're talking someone who's more Bauhaus, we start to get down here into the cool, hard area. And you know, Bauhaus, we're talking about blues, hard blues, Prussian blues. We have photographers who are working in a very passionate medium, you know, and that gets down to the cadmium reds. Again, this is a very, very simple kind of chart to start looking when we're starting to define our vision and taking our vision, how do we start to apply it to colors? How do we start to apply it to typography? Well, if we're looking at cool, you know, we'll probably find Helvetica falls somewhere in this area. We'll probably find script falls somewhere in this area. We probably have our Times somewhere in this area here. So again, what we have here is we have an interesting way that starts to take some of our decisions into a system. Not that we have to use the system, that's not what this is about. This is about if we're getting stuck and we're trying to find a way to support our vision, we've broken our vision down into words, we have a promise, and now we're looking at how to interpret that promise, how to take, where do we find the colors for that? How do we choose typography? This is a way that we can start looking at that. A very, very simple method. What we're doing is we're looking at very, very subtle nuances that can help communicate your vision on a level that a lot of people won't really first be aware of, but it will help support the feelings that they have about who you are and what you're doing. Very simple idea, very simple chart, but it can be very awesome in terms of applying this information to your promise when you're applying it to things like your logo, like your stationery, like your brochures, even your resume. You're talking about where you want your resume to fall. You know, how does that all support this?